First, before we start, a big thank you to Wonder that has never talked to me, but I want to thank them for not copyright striking this channel because we've reacted to a lot of their content and a few different things, and their videos are absolutely incredible. It'll be in the description right here as well. Please go check them out and go subscribe to them. It's awesome. They make some great stuff. And today, we're going to look at surviving for months stranded in the Atlantic Ocean, the fight to survive. We're going to watch this together with the wonderful Twitch chat here as a group. So if you want to hop along, grab a drink, come hang out with us, let's go. React Andy time, boys.
A lone sailor, shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean.
I didn't think there was any way I was going to live more than a couple of weeks.
A desperate struggle for food and water.
It's kind of like living like a caveman.
Days turned into weeks. No sign of land. No hope of rescue.
The thought occurred to me, maybe I'm just doomed to drift forever out here.
Spoiler alert, he lived, because that's him telling this story. So this is obviously going to be an actor. Same handline, f you.
11 weeks at sea in a raft. This is the ultimate survival story. A truly epic fight to survive. In the wild, when things go bad, they go bad fast. Without warning. Oh my.
Man, I wonder if he is gonna make it. The suspense is killing.
Your life can hang by a thread. Adventurer and survivor Craig DiMartino fought back from his own wilderness disaster to reclaim his life. Now Craig meets other courageous outdoorsmen who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive.
Is this like a series?
I'm Craig DiMartino. There are few stories in the history of survival tales as powerful as Steve Callahan's. Being lost at sea is not just a struggle against the elements, but a fight that plays out in the deep recesses of the human mind.
This is off topic. Good looking dude, great voice. This is kind of like what I want to do. I want to host things. He has hair. Yeah, no shit.
It's a place where loneliness and despair can grow to become enemies far greater than hunger, thirst, or predators from the deep.
That
March
looks
19th, 1982. Steve.
Sorry, but this looks like the raft in Rust, and I don't even play Rust. Was it Rust? Oh no, that other game we played with. It looks. I don't know. It's just got that like vibe. It's got Rust feel.
Has been adrift in the middle of the Atlantic for 43 days. He's so far out to sea that he's beyond the range of any effective search by ship or aircraft.
43 days, and I'm sitting here complaining about 47 days of a subathon, bro. And this dude's out there 43 days. At least he had peace and quiet. He didn't have TTS in his ear. Wow.
His sailboat sank after hitting a large object in the dark. As it went down, he made it into his emergency raft with a limited amount of food, water, and useful survival tools. An experienced sailor with an iron will and belief he would survive. He used every bit of knowledge and skill to stay alive. But on the 43rd day, everything changed. A gash in the side of the rubber tube threatened to sink the raft. Steve tried, but couldn't stop the crippling leak.
Being out there in the ocean like that has got to be the creepiest thing. I've went on cruises before with my family, and I have stood like all the way at the end of the boat and looked. And I've imagined, I was like, what happens if I just jumped off and I was just floating out there? There is nothing. It is so scary. It's hard to explain unless you're actually there to see it. You're like, yeah, of course that's scary, right? But when you're there, like actually on a ship, like looking out at the ocean, there's no one. No one would know if you just fell off the boat. And on the cruise ship, there's tons and tons of people. Unless they like saw it, no one could know. Ugh.
Craig DiMartino had to face his own dark moments as he laid on the ground with his legs shattered. Craig asked Steve what he was feeling as he struggled to stay alive.
That was the low point.
I wasn't going any further. Out of steam, physically, emotionally, mentally, and then it was clear that, you know, this was all for naught. I just spent the last month and a half or whatever just struggling, and I'm not going to be able to get back and fix anything, and I'm going to die here, and all my past sins are going to remain, and I can't do anything about it. But then it became, do I have enough energy in me? Do I have enough wherewithal to actually get myself together enough to give it one more go?
For Steve, that week had started like so many others.
My routine was pretty fixed. I would wake up, look around to the whole horizon, making sure there's no ship out there.
In the middle of nowhere, bro. You know how scary this is? Every day you wake up, I wouldn't be able to sleep because I'd worry about a shark taking everything out.
If I had anything to eat, I would, have breakfast. And then I would do exercises, and I would fish if fish were around.
Fishing meant waiting patiently with his small spear gun for just the right moment to strike.
I would be too nervous to fish because I'd be afraid that I would mess up and I would harpoon my boat. One wrong move, especially, not eating so much, your coordination's off, that I would accidentally harpoon my gun, my raft.
At first, I was using it as a conventional spear gun, shooting at the fish. And very soon after I started using it, I went to reload the spear in it, and the strap had disappeared.
What?
Without the spear gun, without a way to get fish, Steve would starve. With some of the line in the survival kit, he meticulously lashed the spear to the stock.
All right, so now he's got a
But
spear.
that's not how it's made to be used. Usually straight through, and then you're pulling on the spear, it's in tension. But if I've got this fish on the end of it, there's a lot of load on this tiny little shaft, so it's often bending it.
Not only that, you have to get a fish like that. You know how hard that is? And it's a perfect strike. What an absolute beast. Yeah, and then eat it raw too. Yeah, the fight for survival, you would think, with certain things like people eating, I don't think any of us truly have been hungry. We all say we're starving, right? We're like, dude, I'm starving right now. And you've been really, really hungry. No one, not a single one of us has truly ever been starving. We're hungry for content. Thank you. Like, actually been starving. And when you are truly starving, anything at all will look like a 5-course meal.
So I'm having to improve the lashing system.
Survival demanded keen attention to the most minute details.
Lots of teeny, teeny, teeny little detail, like every little thing is important. And also trying to be careful that I don't lose anything else.
Well, I'm also curious if they're going to talk about how he lives with water, because you could live without food for a good amount of time. It's the water that you cannot live without, and you can't just drink salt water. You'll get dehydrated. You can't. So I'm curious to see what he did. Fish blood for water? Okay, survivor people. You know what I would do if I ever got stranded? I'd really hope I had internet in my phone. Well, then I could just call someone. Because I'd say I'd pull up you guys to help me out. But I would just...
The next thing that happened, I finally spear another Dorado, and it does this kind of like little twirly, and swims off, and I pick up the end of the spear, and I'm just amazed because it's unscrewed the spear tip and gone.
With the survival kit knife, Steve jerry-rigged a new point for the spear. The improvised weapon proved a lifesaver.
Sharks would come, and they would often bump the raft just to see if there's some kind of a reaction. And that's kind of how I dealt with sharks, was to think that they were like most predators, that if you pose a threat to them, they're less likely to cause you problems. So whenever one would come along, even though I knew I couldn't really hurt it, I would jab at it with a spear. If I got a couple of good hits on it, it would go away.
Wow, bro. That's a good point. Most people would probably be scared or anything, but if you pose to be a threat, they usually go. Same like, with, like, what do they say? Like, for a black bear, fight back. If you pose a threat to it, it's going to run. Well, for most of the time. There's a video with the elephant, the elephant looked to charge this one guy, and he stood his ground, and, like, stared, and, like, was an absolute boss. If I could, I'll find that right now. Come on. What a beast. I would have pissed my pants right there, especially when it started charging. But sees that he's a threat. It's like, I ain't messing with him.
On day 43, Steve prepared to fish again. That afternoon, he waited patiently over the edge of the raft. A Dorado swam by and Steve speared it. Then the big fish twisted wildly toward the raft.
This time it broke the shaft.
That's exactly what I was worried about. Oh my god, dude. That's what I was saying. Oh my god.
Turned around and ran against the raft.
Instantly, the raft's lower tube deflated. Air gushed from the 6-inch tear.
With the bottom tube deflated, the water pressure would push up in the inside so that it was like this dome on the inside of rubber, and if I step in it, it's like being in rubber quicksand, which I was worried about my legs sticking down in the water and sharks and stuff grabbing that.
Steve's whole world quickly crumbled around him.
It made it really hard to tend to the solar still. Almost impossible to fish, and it also gave me only about this much freeboard, so any even minor waves were washing in and out of the raft. I was wet all the time, and it was miserable.
He knew the first big wave could swamp the raft.
Oh my
and
God.
that would be the end.
Yep.
It was just such a stark thing. So I pulled myself up and I went through this really intense mind game of what I had in the raft, what could possibly fix this repair.
He didn't have any adhesive patches big enough to cover the hole.
Even someone as dumb as me, and when your back's against the wall in a survival setting, you'd be amazed what your brain and body can do, and the clarity of thinking, even though it's already a mess. One of the most dangerous things, like with any animal, we're animals, we're mammals, right? The most dangerous you could ever do is put an animal backed up to the corner where nowhere else to go, with adrenaline within a human and all. It's pretty incredible what your mind, your brain, and body could do when there is absolutely no hope. And the thinking process that you would normally never even could acquire. You know, it's wild stuff. It's wild.
So he squeezed the ripped rubber edges together like puckered lips on a mouth and tightly wrapped them with line.
I tried external pressure patches and trying harder and harder to tie it tight. Nothing worked. So I went through this for 10 days, 24/7, just trying to deal with this leak. And it just completely exhausted me. And I finally just kind of collapsed back in the raft, and I thought that was it.
The raft was barely afloat and still 1,000 miles from land. Steve hadn't been able to fish and restock his food supply. The solar distillation still had quit working.
That was the water, the solar distillation.
Out of drinking water.
I remember feeling really sorry for myself again, breaking down and feeling the water kind of washing in and out of the raft and just feeling my life just ebbing away.
Absolutely wild. By the way, if this was on, TV, that portion right there where they're doing that would have been a 3-minute commercial break. They do a recap of what just happened because you just watched 3 minutes of commercials.
Maybe I can get myself together enough to have one more shot at this. If I don't get my act together here, now, this one time, I wasn't just talking about the remote possibility now that this is a matter of hours away. I'm gonna be dead. That's all there is to it. And then it dawned on me, I know what I need to do. As often is the case, in order to fix a problem, you often have to make them worse.
His new plan required that he make the hole even bigger. He also needed to sacrifice the stainless steel eating utensils from his survival kit.
Bro, the thinking, like I said, the thinking process, man, when your back is against the wall, who would think that? I can't even fathom picturing myself in this situation. Which is why I always get annoyed whenever you see something on Twitter, like if there's a fight or something, and someone's like, how did that person just stand there? If that was me, I would have knocked him out. I would have told him to shut up. I would have done this. No, you wouldn't have. You say that now because you're behind the keyboard watching the video. When you're put in a situation that the adrenaline rushes, or like a scary situation like that, everybody reacts differently. You could freeze like a deer in headlights. You could actually naturally react to maybe attack. You could maybe say something stupid, maybe run, fight or flight. You never know how you'll react. So that's one of the things that always annoys me.
Those as pins. I broke the handle off of a fork, and then I cut slits in the top and the bottom of the lips. And I put the foam tongue in, and I drove that pin down through the whole thing. And then behind it, I could wind lashings and make them really tight. And then it didn't matter how much pressure was in the raft, the line and everything couldn't be forced off because it was being held by that pin.
With the hand pump,
wow.
Steve reinflated the raft. The repair worked. The raft was stable again.
Wow.
Even though I felt really proud of myself for coming up with the answer, I'm also berating myself for being so stupid I couldn't have figured it out like a week beforehand.
That's awesome.
With the repair complete, Steve focused on restarting the neglected solar still and restocking his food supply.
I got pretty skinny, and it was very interesting to me to see what happened to my body, because all the fat goes first, and all those bits of your body that you're not using a lot. So, you know, the rear end's gone. Don't need that.
I didn't even need to be stranded for that to happen. Not even stranded. That already happened to me. For anybody wondering, and like with weight loss, everybody's body is different. So if you ever, and this is a tip to YouTube or anybody here, if you ever find a product that says it will target the fat in your this and that is a lie. Everybody's body is different, and how the fat decides to come off of your body, it is just completely random. It's based on your body. So you can never target a direct area. You can do all the crunches in the world, that's not going to lose belly fat. What that's going to do is make your abs stronger, so when you finally do lose fat all across your body, the abs will protrude through the skin and you'll see your six-pack. You can't target an area. It's just, everybody's different. For me, it always happens in my face. My face is the first to either gain the weight or go. But for the most part, at the end, it's usually the stomach. What about those products that say it will add 3 inches? Never tried it. I don't know if they work or not.
Tried to, you know, like holding on to it. It was kind of like, a bit like walking on water. But I got pretty good at it after a while, and my legs were strong enough to keep me up, but they were pretty thready by the end of it, you know, sort of knobby knees. My upper body, which I used the most, my body reserved the most strength for, so it remained in fairly decent shape compared to the rest of me.
Steve caught enough of the large Dorados and other small fish to keep himself from starving. But without any fruits or vegetables, scurvy might kill him.
There was always that nagging of being hungry.
I actually don't know. What is scurvy? I've heard of it before. Can anybody tell me what scurvy is? I have many of you survivalists here. Vitamin C, lack of vitamin C. All right, vitamin C deficiency. So you guys are smart.
Always. I found it very interesting that every time I slept that I would dream of foods and drinks. But I never dreamt of steak or fish. It was always beautiful breads and fruit and all the stuff that my body needed.
A tangle of kelp floated by. Steve plucked it from the water and ate what he could to get some critical vitamins and to supplement his monotonous diet of fish.
As time went on, I became much more interested in what was inside the fish than the flesh. The fish eyes, which were nuggets of fluid, between the vertebrae, all those little discs, they were kind of fluid-like. Fresh fish liver, heart, all those things inside the fish which were providing me with vitamins and minerals and fats.
He couldn't eat an entire fish in one sitting, so he devised a way to stockpile the meat. His own fish jerky.
They'd be roughly 1-inch square sections by, you know, however long. And I'd hang them up on all these strings which would dry in the sun. And so sometimes they would keep for a really long time.
That's insane. So drying them and hanging them, it wouldn't go bad? It's still good. Wow.
Steve suffered unavoidable saltwater sores.
They start as like little bumps on the skin, turn into these kind of pimples that end up opening up. So you have an open ulcer, much like a canker sore or something like that. It forms on the skin, and they tend to be in places where you're wet a lot and compressed, like hips. But I would end up with hundreds of these all over me, and they're very painful because, first of all, they're open ulcers, and secondly, I'm living in a salt-encrusted environment.
Day 60.
After 60 days adrift, the raft was stable, and Steve was winning his fight against starvation. But he feared another battle. An even more difficult challenge was looming on the horizon.
What could be more difficult than that? Oh yeah, the weather. Weather, storm, balding. Are you dumb?
Steve Callahan had managed to plot his approximate location.
Didn't even think of it.
He had measured his speed, and he'd kept a log of how far west the currents had been carrying him. He estimated he was still 4 or 5 weeks away from making landfall somewhere in the Caribbean. As the days turned into weeks, the effort to survive each day surprisingly grew a bit easier.
I was surviving literally in a rubber tent in the middle of a wilderness.
Fish, man.
Fishing for a few hours a day. And I just became starkly aware of how much of our lives are spent dealing with all this stuff that we don't really need.
I always say to myself too, like whenever you see an animal or like a dog or anything, I mean, you gotta remember we're mammals. Like I'll look at an animal, I'm like, man, their whole day revolves around them eating. It's not to hop on WoW and log in and do their dailies or grind. All right, and then go make food and then, you know, hang out or go to the movies or street or whatever these. Their day is literally eating. And when you're put in a position where you're stripped of everything, of all the extra stuff that we have, and the, how fortunate we are as as humans, with all of this technology and all these different things, when you take and strip all of that away, your day is just about surviving. It is just eating. And this is what this man has. And his whole day, like fishing for 2 hours, and then getting even more food to stash to the side. Wild when you think about it.
That we want, but we don't really need, and yet the irony is that the things that mean the most to me don't come from them anyway. Through the entire voyage, I think that's something that helped me quite a lot, was to recognize, at least intellectually, even if I wasn't having a good time, that there were these wonders around me. At night I would stand up and I'd look out and all the fish would be kind of hovering under the raft, just pacing along, and each one you could see their entire shape as they would go through this glittering underwater thing like silver platters. It sounds like a simple thing, but for me in that position at that time, it was like touching God or something.
When you have everything stripped away like that, I mean, I could only imagine, like, you would feel like you're going crazy. You would say, oh, he's just going crazy and everything. To be honest, he's eating fine. He's eating good. He's eating everything. He's actually getting clarity. We don't have clarity. Sometimes for people to see clarity, like you ever see when you take things for granted all the time until something drastic happens, and then you realize, you're like, wow, I took all of that for granted. Like, that's kind of like this, except this case it wasn't like, maybe like your job or something. You took your job for granted and then you lost it. For this, it was his life. Yeah, post-nut clarity. That is not what I mean. Not even close, and I'm not going to rate his hands.
Steve jotted down his observations in his small notebooks.
I wrote in the log, to me, this is a view of heaven from a seat in hell. For this little me, Stephen, I was in pain and I was suffering and I was dying, but there was this other part, this very open, expansive spiritual part. I feel spiritually touched by nature, where one is confronted directly with one's insignificance. I feel truly humbled, and the sea certainly does that, and in the life raft it was that times a million.
The loneliness took a toll,
days. Oh
but
my
companionship
God.
would have come with a deadly price.
I longed for people most of the time, but I was also aware that had I had somebody with me, that one or the other of us or both of us would have died, because I just didn't have enough water for the two of us.
After nearly 2 months, the freshwater solar still had slowly deteriorated.
Oh no.
But the raft had drifted closer to the Caribbean, and the skies filled with welcome rain. Steve rigged a scrap of survival blanket as a rain collection system.
This guy's an absolute just Chad. Just W after W of survival.
Early on, my equipment was all working pretty well. I had to pump up the raft a lot and stuff like that, but basically it was okay.
The raft itself was guaranteed by the manufacturer to hold together for 40 days. Steve was already weeks past that expiration date. Would the waterproofing and the glued seams hold the raft together long enough for Steve to reach land?
That is insane. Oh no.
I started going through this period where I was going, maybe I'm like a Flying Dutchman. Maybe I'm dead. Maybe this is what I deserve for all my past, sins. The thought occurred to me, like, maybe I'm just doomed to drift forever out here.
I mean, you'll have those, and then the other end, when you have those moments of clarity and happiness and being able to think, you'll also have those moments too, where you'll go crazy.
Steve Callahan's raft was slowly crumbling. His solar water still finally gave out, and by day 75, it looked like he'd never be rescued. But then, the gentle current brought him a glimmer of hope.
As far as the eye can see, I came upon these tangles of trash and weed, sargassum weed and other kinds of weed. It was all bundled up and just going forever. And although as horrible as that was, for me it was a fantastic sign. I'm on the edge of something.
Steve had reached the edge of the shipping lanes, routes trafficked by freighters crisscrossing the Caribbean Sea.
On the 75th night, I got up and I looked out, and there were kind of like these little glows on the horizon, and there were several of them. I was really getting more and more jazzed up, like, this is something. That they might not be boats. They might actually be something on land. And then finally, I saw what was the loom of a lighthouse definitively, because there was a pulse and a pause and a pulse, and it repeated over and over and over again.
That's amazing. I would be, me personally, I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but when you're on the brink of completing something, so say I'm playing a game, right, and I'm jumping for like an hour, right, consistently without missing a beat. I'm really good at it, right? It's like second nature, you know, boom, 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 and it's super easy, you know. I just have to like survive. But there's like, I could see the end and it's almost there. Even though I've done it for so long and it's like second nature, or I know I could do it, the panic like sets in, right? Like that overconfidence, the nerves, the like, it's right there and everything. If I was in this position, he did it 76 days, he's got the food, he's good and everything. But seeing that lighthouse, if I was in that position, I would have absolute panic at the same time of being happy, because you start rushing it, panicking, like it's right there, you know. If this thing, I'd be thinking, if this ref goes down, I die, you know, like right here, can it? I wonder if he'll explain if he had any panic or he just let it go.
So the next morning, I expected to kind of get up and maybe see something way off in the distance. But actually, it was pretty close. I could see details on the land. I could see that there was an island right in front of me, and then I heard an engine. And it's getting closer and closer and closer. And I look out, and I see these fishermen coming out.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing, man.
And they come up to the boat and they're talking some kind of language. I don't know what it is. I really can't figure it out. It's not really Spanish, it's not French, what is it? Well, it turns out it's Creole, and I'm not understanding a word of it.
Oh, man.
We load the raft up on the bow of the boat and roar into the island.
The fishermen sped Steve to the tiny island of Marie Galante. To Steve's good luck, the currents had drifted him to the easternmost of the Caribbean islands.
Wow.
Just south of Guadeloupe. In 76 days, he drifted nearly 2,000 miles.
Wow.
I'm up towards the beach and I'm so excited. You know, here's land, and there's a beautiful beach. I immediately just fall flat in my face on the beach.
Man.
These two local guys just grab me by the arms and they just like lift me up and take me up to the local gendarme and sit me in a metal chair, and somebody thrusts a cold ginger beer in my hand.
Oh my God, that must be the most amazing drink of his life.
Oh my God, this is so heaven.
Helpful locals delivered Steve to the
He's rocking a Lacoste shirt, bro. Living the life, man. You know how expensive this is?
He contacted his parents that he was safe.
Wow.
Drawing from his pencil logs of the 76-day journey, Steve wrote a book titled Adrift. His vivid retelling caught the attention of film director Ang Lee. Lee talked with Steve and asked him for his input and advice on his 2012 film about a young man's struggle to survive a shipwreck, The Life of Pi.
Oh.
Some of the gifts that I feel like I was given from the voyage, I found that I was a lot stronger and more adaptable than I thought I was, which is certainly important. But actually, the equal gift was being confronted.
You guys know it?
My,
you know Life of Pi? Stranded on a boat with a tiger. Wow.
My failures and shortcomings. I think that was a real gift. It gave me a chance to come back and try to make things a little better.
The ocean and sailing almost killed you. You didn't wait that long, jumped right back on a boat.
People don't stop doing what they're doing because they have an accident. The bottom line is that even though I went through this kind of horrible experience, I gained so much from it.
I tell people that too. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't want to go through it again.
Yeah.
Same idea, but what I've learned and seen, I would have not seen and learned.
Yeah.
You know, I would have probably just kept doing what I was doing.
To see them two talk to survivors like that, it's just like two Giga Chads right there. I'm at a loss for words.
People, I think, in society want
They want
like more security. They want to get rid of that risk. You know, everybody suffers in life. Everybody goes through crises, and if I was the 62-year-old Steve and I knew the 29-year-old Steve was going to go and have this experience and it was going to be really hard for him, but all the stuff that he would gain from it in the long run, it'd be like, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to tell you what happens. Be prepared. It ain't going to be easy, but, you know, you're just going to have this amazing experience, and it's going to take you down a lot of roads you could never have imagined.
What an actual Giga Chad. That was really good. What a great channel, man.